special meeting for the Town Board of the Town of Ossining for October 7th, 2014. We're in the final quarter of 2014. Hard to believe. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Harder. Councilmember Jeffrey.
Present.
Councilmember Blaha.
Here.
Councilmember Wilshire. Here. Supervisor Donnelly.
Present.
Are there any public comment on the agenda items this evening? Move into our board resolutions. Letter A, authorizing town justice and town supervisor to submit a grant application to New York State Office of Court Administration. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby authorizes the town justices and town supervisor to submit a 2015 Justice Court Assistance Program application to New York State Office of Court Administration with a request not to exceed $30,000. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I just want to point out that every year the courts get a grant from the New York State Court Administration, so this will be well used, I'm sure, for different items in the court.
Letter B, personnel.
No, all in favor.
Oh, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Letter B, Personnel Highway Department, seasonal appointment. Resolved that the town board of the town of Ossining hereby appoints Franklin Encalada Ossining to seasonal position of laborer in the Highway Department.
God bless you.
Bless you.
Excuse me. Thank you. Effective October 6, 2014, at a rate of $12 per hour. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Letter C, Personnel Highway Department, seasonal appointment. Resolved, the town board of the town of Ossining hereby appoints Arthur Stockley Ossining to seasonal position of laborer in the Highway Department, effective October 6, 2014, at a rate of $12 per hour. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do I have a motion to adjourn into regular work session?
Motion to adjourn into work session.
Second.
All
We're so
those in
eager.
all those in
Aye.
favor? Opposed?
We do our hiring in the highway department when it's leaf season. So that's our big time. So the leaves are starting to come down. If we have many more of these windstorms and this rain, we'll see a lot more leaves. And every day you see more and more. It's really beautiful outside. Full moon tomorrow morning. Full moon. And an eclipse. Yeah. So tonight we're going to start our work session. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Saw it last night.
But it's going to be cloudy. We're going to start our work session agenda by talking about abandoned properties, and our building inspector, John Hamilton, will be joining us. You can either sit at the table with Wayne, or you can stand. Your choice. You'll have to share your mic with Wayne, though.
Good evening. I asked the supervisor if we had some... Okay, there you go. I wanted to meet with you tonight to discuss some problems that we're beginning to experience here in the town. We now have 2 foreclosed properties that we cannot track anyone down, and they're falling into disrepair. They need to be boarded up. The lawns need to be maintained. They're creating real blight in the community. We find great difficulty because the owners of the property, the people who hold the mortgagees, just leave, and you can't track them down. So you go to try to get a hold of the mortgage company who's holding it, and it's virtually impossible to track them down. We have their names, we have phone numbers, and you go in and you call them, and you're put into a recording cycle where press 1, press 3, press 2, and you're back to 1, and then you hang up, and then you start over. So it's very difficult to track them. If we send them notices of violation, they 99.9% of the time just ignore them.
Can I ask you who they is?
They would be the people holding the mortgage.
Usually the banks.
Right.
Are we talking about the banks?
Well,
Well, mortgage companies.
mortgage companies.
Okay.
But technically, they're no longer
just mortgage holders. They're the owners of the property at this point because the foreclosures have gone through or not?
Well, no, the
No.
foreclosures have not gone through.
Okay.
The people leave the property, and the banks do not assume, take over the deed and foreclose officially. So what they do is they come to the property, they have a maintenance company come in, winterize it, and never come back again. So these two houses already have grass that are like 3 feet tall. I can see some cracks in windows. Everything is a mess. And it's just a matter of time before we
It's a
start
pity,
getting...
too.
I'm sorry?
It's a pity.
It's very, very much so.
You know, what I can do actually is, now that I understand the problem, is if we have the name of the owner of the property, I can track and see who, because if there's an ongoing foreclosure action through the Westchester County Clerk's website and available information, I can find out who the attorneys are who represent the lenders in the foreclosure action. So maybe we can contact. I can't guarantee that you're going to get any traction, but at least it's a name and a person you could speak to.
Well, usually the tax office has the bank that's been paying, because if it has a mortgage, the bank
Yeah,
has been paying
We
the
have that
mortgage.
information. We do track them that way, but again, we try to reach out to them. I have page after page here of contacts with them.
How many of these properties exist right now?
Right now, we have two with a potential third one that I'll be checking tomorrow.
Two in the unincorporated.
Right. Yeah, I'm only dealing with the unincorporated area here. There's two definite and another one possibly tomorrow, and they're becoming an issue. Unfortunately, the state the Attorney General's office put forth a law, the Abandoned Property Neighborhood Relief Act of 2014. Everybody was in favor of it, and I sent it to various members, and it's kind of stalled now in the Senate and the House in the state legislature. So
I don't believe they're in session right now.
well, the last we checked, it wasn't even on the agendas anymore. It was just kind of like in limbo. I'm hoping that we can get this passed because it's going to help us significantly. It holds the lien holders or deed holders accountable, the mortgagors, holds them accountable once they begin the foreclosure process. Even though they don't take the property over, they're going to be held accountable to maintain the property. As it stands right now, we have a local law, which is the Unsafe Buildings Code, but it's a little bit ambiguous. I'd have to get Wayne to give me an opinion, because it kind of says that we shall either repair the property or demolish it. I don't know what the definition of repair is. Is repair board it up and maintain it, and then lien the property for a sale? I don't know. Right now, the way I read it, it's repair it or remove it. But we can check into that and see if that means that we can just board it up and maintain it during the growing
Where are
season.
these properties?
One of them is on Sam Stagg Avenue, which is very close, as you know, and the other's on River Parkway. I don't want to give you the exact
Yeah, I
addresses.
remember.
I wouldn't recommend going in and doing any work on properties, at this stage when they're in the midst of a foreclosure. Unless there's an imminent safety danger, which is a different issue entirely, but.
Well, sometimes municipalities go out and they at least mow the grass, and then they hold that bill for, so that, for the helping the neighbors and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, they're an issue now. These buildings are unsecured. The animals are going to start getting in, and sooner or
Right.
later the kids are going to realize, wow, we have a place in the winter. And I had this on McCarthy Drive on a beautiful house that's not been occupied for quite an extended length of time, and I periodically check it. And the last time I checked it, I found beer cans in the backyard, a broken window into the basement, and I had the owner secure it, and I had the police increase their patrols there. So it's just a matter of time, and I'm worried more so about the Samstag one because those houses are so close together, and if we have an incident with the fire, it could be disastrous.
So what is your recommendation, John?
Well, I would like to, first I would like to go through what Wayne said. I like that idea that he can track the lawyers. I'm sorry?
Are you not able to?
Oh, you're not talking into the mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. I like Wayne's idea that perhaps he can track through the lawyers and see if we can get anything done that way. If we can't get it done, then I think we need to examine the possibility of boarding these properties up at the very least and cutting them once and then slapping a lien on the property. Unfortunately, with the state not really moving on this, I don't know that we have a local answer.
Well, part of the problem is that it's not even like it's going to go into a tax foreclosure because there's mortgages on the house, so they're
Right.
paying the taxes,
Right.
quote unquote, to save their investment.
Correct.
Okay.
I don't think we have a mechanism in place, or if we're gonna do something like mow the grass, that it can then be re-levied, like we do with water bills at this point. There's no, I don't believe that there's any mechanism to do that at this point.
There's got to be.
Yeah, actually, we can, because we can assessment of expenses.
Does it say you can levy it?
Yeah.
Let me see.
Levy and collect in the same.
That's why I
manner.
have John here.
I have glasses on.
I stand corrected. 66-10.
Tea, like sweet milk.
Thank you.
So, we can do it. If Wayne reads this and feels that repair means boarding up and cutting the grass, then, we could do it. But again, it's an Again, it's an expense, for us to do this.
Right.
We'd have to hire somebody to come in and board this thing up, and then we'd have to hire someone to maintain it. My thought is that we would have, town personnel do it and then slap the lien on for what the town personnel makes per hour, including benefits.
Right.
So they pick up the whole tab.
I think one of the things you have to do, too, is we have to, so you've tried to reach out to the mortgage holders,
We're
right?
trying, yeah, we're trying to reach out. I have phone numbers I call. One was somewhere, and I don't know if it was India or where. They didn't even know what I was talking about. So they gave me an 800 number, which puts me in a loop. Without a mortgage number, they will not
Yeah.
take me out of the loop. And I don't know how to get the mortgage number. But Wayne might have better luck with the attorneys.
Well, if there's a foreclosure action pending, the information should be available online through the county clerk's website.
Okay, so let's keep working on this and seeing what we have, because you don't, unfortunately, this happens, and then a lot of times the properties are rented, and the people will just get up and move out because they're afraid. They don't understand that a foreclosure takes quite a long time.
What I need, John, is the record owner of the property and the addresses.
I'll email everything to you tomorrow morning. Thank you. Okay.
Moving along.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you,
Enjoy
John.
the night.
Thank you.
You have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to ask if that doesn't work, but I guess it will work. There seems to be authority for it, but is there a mechanism to have a receiver appointed to maintain the property through the
Well, it's-
foreclosure action? Probably not necessary if we can do this at a modest cost and lien the property.
The next step we're taking is going to try to see if it's in probate. Well, this is a
Probate?
this is a third property that we believe somebody is deceased, and we're checking that one for probate. But any other way, I don't know about receivership. I'd have to yield to Wayne on that. I don't know.
I've never heard of a situation where a municipality steps in and,
Well, wants
in
to.
a single-family residence foreclosure action, and,
We're out-of-the-box thinkers here.
good,
Yeah. Well, we don't end up with,
back in that box.
this time, good. Yeah.
One thing, Mother Nature will take care of the grass. If you cut it one time, get it done.
Yeah.
It's time for Mother
Got a
Nature.
woodchuck close to my house.
But all you would need is one time.
Well,
one
now,
cut.
in this
Right.
weather, yeah.
In the summer,
Yeah.
It must be very upsetting to the neighbors too, to have, yeah.
we're getting the calls.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The next item on our agenda this evening is our ethics law update. Are you both coming up? Mark Reisman and Stuart Kahan? I gave you all a copy of this. Yeah.
Good evening.
Good evening. We're very anxious to move this to the next steps.
Yes. So, when we were here last time, honestly, I will confess that my notes from the last meeting are somewhere. They're not in cyberspace, but they're somewhere other than with me, and I can't find them. But based on what I remembered of our discussions last time, I did some edits to the previous sections, and I hope that these are a little clearer than they were the last time that we were here. Additionally, Sandy Hirsch, a member of our Board of Ethics, drafted a complaint form that would be a standard form that people who wanted to file a complaint would be, I would say they should be required to use this form because it basically contains everything that the statute says it will need.
Oh,
And I think I emailed that along with the with the edits. So I know that one of the issues that was raised last time was if the amendments are passed, one of them being, how would we, one of them being that each member of the now 5-person board would serve a 1-year term, and they would stagger out on a year-by-year basis so that at least by the terms of the term years, I guess you would call it, only one person per year would go off the board. There was a question about how we would start that process, and then, once the statute was amended and approved, and I think we covered it now.
So do you want to go over it?
Sure. So anyway, I think it's 20-7, which talks about establishing the Board of Ethics, which has already been established, but it also indicates that there will be 5 members to be appointed by the town board, and if you move down, it indicates that the length of the term of 5 years is intended to be equal to the number of members, so that the term of only one member of the board shall terminate at the end of each calendar year. So, assuming that we're able to put this new statute in effect as of January 1,
Which is our goal.
right, this will work perfectly, and then the board will pass by resolution a statute, will appoint the members, and one person will get a 5-year term, a 1-year, 2, 3,
Yep.
4, 5, and then it'll rotate around. So that's section 20-7. 20-8 addresses the powers of the Board of Ethics, and these are new powers, to not only give advisory opinions, but to investigate complaints and to make recommendations to the town board once it's done doing that.
Can you hear him, Matt? Okay.
Can you hear me? And the other thing that's been added in this edit version, both in 20-8 and I believe in 20-9, is that both the town board and the Board of Ethics shall be required to keep any complaint submissions confidential, and the town clerk as well, so that even though I don't think it's feasible for somebody to file an ethics complaint and the town board to not be aware that the complaint was filed, on the one hand. On the other hand, the town board should not make public the fact that a complaint was filed until such time as that complaint is resolved, or there's resolved by way of making a finding that some type of action should be taken. And it doesn't specifically address, the statute, even as it's amended, doesn't specifically address when the town board may make a finding public. But it does say that the clerk, who will be required to receive the complaint and then to pass it along to both the Board of Ethics and the town board, shall also be required to keep it confidential. And I think that was a concern when we were here last time. It's going to pass through a lot of hands. How do we make sure that the integrity of the complaint is maintained? And I think that's the major gist of the amendments.
Well, I think one of the big ones that I'd like you to talk about is that it can be, an ethics complaint can be submitted by someone from the public.
Yes, and that's in there as well. That was also addressed at the last meeting.
Right.
And that is under section,
20-9, I believe.
I think it's 20-9. Yes, and I think it clarifies a little bit from the last meeting who specifically has standing to submit a complaint. So we're saying that it could be a real property owner within the town, a business owner, or someone who is leasing real property. And if you're a business owner, you obviously won't necessarily own the property that you're operating out of, but if you're doing business here and you believe that a town official has violated some ethical obligation, even a business owner who is leasing a store or a commercial space would have the ability to file a complaint, as would a residential tenant. And then 20-9 also, as it did last time, addresses and also clarifies a bit the form in which a complaint must take if it's to be accepted and reviewed by the Board of Ethics.
Can I ask, did you say, business owners, who can file a complaint? You go over that again,
Sure.
please? Thank
So if you own real property in the town of Ossining, whether it's commercial or residential,
The whole town.
yes, you would have the ability to file a complaint. If you are a tenant, a residential tenant, you're obviously subject to the actions of town employees, and that person, even though he or she doesn't own residential property, would still have the ability to file a complaint.
Well, that's all I needed. I didn't hear tenant
Oh, yeah.
before.
Yeah.
I think you also have to probably add as well, I mean, any business that does business with the town, even if you're an
Right.
outside business, should also have the same right, I believe, as well.
That's very true.
And also, I guess the question I have is, I'm wondering about this provision in 20-10, which discusses the investigative power of the Board of Ethics without really truly defining what they can, what powers they have and don't have. I mean, it talks about the administration of oaths and affirmations, but it certainly doesn't give the board any subpoena power. So I don't know if that's going to be sort of a toothless provision in there or not at this point, and what do you think? I'm just curious. I mean, how,
Right, the
The
board
way
of-
the look,
wait,
though, is-
providing the Board of Ethics with subpoena power?
well, look.
Sometimes they do.
You can do it, but the new
to give
section
them-
does provide that the Board of Ethics will conduct investigations as they deem necessary. So the
But
question is, how do you conduct those investigations?
But wouldn't the town board, the town board has that power now, right? So they could bring it to the town board and go from there.
No,
a
it's-
separate entity.
Yeah, it needs to be that they bring to the town board what their recommendations are and their conclusions are, not to have the town board sit here and investigate. That's why you have this group of people to investigate, because they're outside of the body that,
You're talking subpoena power, that's what I'm talking about.
oh yeah, they don't have subpoena power,
They
no.
don't have it,
No.
yeah.
And I-
No, and I think we're going to start without it, and, because it goes to the
what I was
next,
talking about.
yeah, oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, it's if I can, I think the point is well taken. But I think what we've done is to give the Board of Ethics, it says it has the power and duty to conduct such investigation as a majority of the Board of Ethics deems necessary to carry out the provisions of this chapter. I think it should be the provisions of this article. But if you want to give it subpoena power, that's
Well,
fine.
I just think you don't want to go too far, but the thing is that, let's say that you have a question on someone, and person A says that person C is doing something, and you need to talk to person B. I'm trying to be obscure as possible, and you need to talk to person B. Are we going to rely on person B to come forward, and that's going to voluntarily, and that's where you are, because remember, none of this is out in public, nobody knows about it yet. I don't know if by the time you get to the investigative state that it gets out there, because you're talking to people, but I don't know what if you were to put an action plan together, how would it move through the processes? So you get a complaint. Can you go over what your thought pattern is on that? You get a complaint. It goes to the clerk.
Right.
The clerk gives a confidential email to the ethics board, all the members of the ethics board, and to the town board. But it's only for referral. It's only for reference. It's information for the town board. The ethics board, and correct me when I go askew. The ethics board then meets to talk about it, determine its legitimacy, determine what the next steps that they would want to take on it are, whether it's something, and I don't know what your terms are in lawyers land, but if it has any credence to it, or if it's not, something that should be investigated, then you have the ability to investigate it. And you have person A being someone is complaining, person C is complaining about person A, and you need to talk to person B. And so so you're going to rely on person B. You're going to write a letter to person B and say, "Can you come and talk to us?" That's where the only power. How much power does the ethics board have? I know that this was a discussion for quite a while in the village of Austin too, but. You expect people to come forward and participate, but person B in this particular scenario that I'm giving you may say, I don't want anything to do with this thing. And therefore, you're going to rely on the person that made the accusation and the person that he said, she said kind of scenario. And that's the only reason I can see. But I think maybe, this is a living document, isn't it? So if we have something come up, and you have a problem with that, then we can react. Then we can see if we're not getting any results from, because I think we'd rather see if we can do it without that for now, and then move on to that. If we find we have a serious situation, can you react to it immediately if you have some ethics charge come up, or can you change the rules in the middle of an ethics?
Not if it's based on the code.
Right.
You have to amend the code, and that takes time.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that once an investigation is commenced, you can't change the rules of the investigation in
Right.
the middle of it.
Okay.
The other thing that the statute does is to require that the Board of Ethics develop its own internal procedures for conducting investigations. And I don't know if that's
Well, you definitely want that because, then you're not being influenced by the board.
Exactly.
Right.
And I don't know if it's reasonable or unreasonable, frankly, to expect the board to write its own rules, but it is going to have a lawyer advisor. And the people who are presently, there will be additional members, and we expect that some of them will be not non-lawyers, but we have some pretty competent lawyers already on the board, and that'll probably continue for at least some period of time. And I think if you want the board to be as independent as possible, within reason, it's probably a good idea to let them develop their own procedures.
Well, I think there's a big difference between developing, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a big difference between developing your own procedures and being able to.
And having subpoena powers.
I agree.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I,
You should create the group should create their own policies and how they handle stuff because that's not what we're here for. But I think there's, and that I can see, and then see where we go from. What do you think?
Oh, yeah.
Wait a minute, we have some.
I
Wait a
have
minute.
some
You do?
Yeah.
If I may.
Yeah, sure.
One thing that I see in here, I write and then I read and then I start editing again. This will go on for the rest of my life. But under section 20-10.
I think you need to get closer to that mic.
Sure. Under section 20-10, one thing that should probably be added, and I put it in the third line. It says that after the word the town clerk, the Board of Ethics shall have the power and duty. I would suggest that we add the word to expeditiously conduct such investigations as a majority of the board.
I don't know where we are, but
20-10.
20-10, third line down.
Duty to conduct.
To add the word expeditiously. So they have to do it quickly.
Yeah.
Do we have to tell them that they've got to render, come up with a finding within 30 days of the time that a
Well, you don't know how
complaint-
long that investigation's going to take. So.
Exactly.
Right.
That's why if you use the word expeditiously, it means they have the obligation to do it quickly, but obviously appropriately. The other thing that I think it's somewhere in this code, but we should probably also add that at the conclusion of the investigation, the Board of Ethics shall make findings of fact and recommendations and submit them to the board, I guess, something like that.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
but the statute doesn't
Yeah.
specifically say that, although you would expect that they will. Anyway, I'm sorry, council member.
It's all good, Mr. Reisman. A couple of questions. First, do the changes here in your red line, and by the way, thank you for all your work on this, and to the whole board.
My colleague
Mr. Kahan.
and Sandy, who couldn't be here.
And Sandy. So thanks for your efforts on this. I have a question as to whether your comments in here reflect your notes from what you took the last time, or are the notes not reflected in here?
If I had the notes, I could answer your question,
Okay.
but I.
But you recall what you
I
recall
just
from
didn't,
the
I just didn't
answer.
know if the changes were without notes, or because I might have notes and I could probably.
The changes are without notes,
I see.
but
Okay.
but Stuart also participated, and he has a very good memory. And I asked him if I covered everything, and to the best of his knowledge, he says yes. Am I correct, Stuart?
But no.
Okay.
But Stuart wasn't here the last time, but he was here the time before and did the presentation, right?
True.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Yeah. No, but if you do have notes, I would
I'll
appreciate it.
take a look,
Sure.
just for thoroughness and completeness.
Yes.
As far as the subpoena power, could we possibly consider putting in a provision now that says that the Board of Ethics, if it deems it appropriate, can seek the authority to subpoena from the town board, upon request, so that the board consider it, and on a case-by-case basis. If it's requested, then the board would have the final authority as to whether or not subpoena power should be exercised. But the authority
For that one case?
for that one case, so the authority could be at least established as a foundation in here, but not granted until the circumstances of that particular case warrant it.
You know what, that's going to politicize.
Oh, it will?
You may have to come back to the board, and if you're trying to avoid that.
And any board member that's subject to review would necessarily recuse himself or something like that. Or
I
herself.
kind of think that might.
No, but I'm saying you would
cause-
put that in there, that any complaint against any. Well,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that if something comes up, I agree with you on that. I don't know how legally it can be done, and so it doesn't look like it is political or anything, but I want to make sure that if something comes up, that we can react to it properly, expeditiously, like you say, and if we need to have people come in and they don't want to, but that that they have the information, it gets to be, you're trying to resolve an issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think that's, I would say that if the board turned around and said, no, you can't have subpoena power when you're requesting it, I would imagine that the ethics board would use that very infrequently, that their request, that.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, I reiterate my request. I think that's a good way to handle it, political or not. Everything's political, but this is in an ethics context, and I would expect that any board that would take a request from the ethics board for requesting permission for subpoena power, that the board would, as always, act appropriately and grant it if it was warranted by the circumstances. Anyway, I'll move on. If there are written recommendations by the Board of Ethics, would those too not be confidential, so that you say the complaint and its contents confidential, and any written recommendations? And I don't even know, what if the town board then hears the recommendations and they issue, a penalty or some sort of a sanction, or that it's disposed of? Is there something at that point where this law should address whether or not, at what point does the confidentiality stop, basically? I don't know.
I've addressed that in a I don't want to say roundabout, but in an indirect way by referencing the public officers law, because obviously, at some point in time, the provisions of FOIL are going to come into play. And under those circumstances, regardless of what our law says, our law may conflict with the with FOIL. So I think if you reference FOIL, it should be good enough. There are probably certain circumstances where if there's a finding that a public official committed some type of ethics violation, I sort of wrestle with this myself. Doesn't the public have the right to know that?
But does the public have the right to know that a complaint was made about somebody and they were exonerated and the whole thing should go away? But there's nothing in here that says that when it gets to the town board that also should be confidential, or that the recommendations should be confidential. So I'm just wondering. Yes.
Well, I think it does.
Okay.
I mean, I think
I didn't see that.
there's kind of a broad language that says that that the complaint
And the proceedings should be confidential.
proceedings should be.
And the result. I don't know. I don't want to
Well, you may be
hammer out
right.
particular language here.
No,
it's up to you.
you may be right. If I miss something, I'd like to fix it.
Yep. The complaint and proceedings and any recommendations confidential.
Okay. All right.
Seems right.
Okay.
Well, eventually, no matter what you do in confidentiality, something is going to get out there, especially if you have to interview people and stuff. So there is a right of, I totally get it. If somebody just makes up this this charge and you want to you exonerate the person and everything, but then again, don't you want that out there, that this charge was brought up? Because eventually it's going to get out there. It just does.
Also keep in mind that the person or employee, as the case may be, who is the subject of the complaint, has the right to ask that the hearing be held in public, if there's going to be some type of a hearing. And there's nothing in here that forbids the person who's the subject of an investigation from coming forward and saying, I'm the subject of an investigation. It's only the town clerk, the town board, and the ethics board that are required to keep it confidential.
Well, what if you're on the town board?
Then you would be
And the
covered by
complaint.
the provision.
Well, you would have to recuse yourself anyway. So but okay.
I think I brought this up last time. You have two references here to a 2010, and I just don't really understand the numbering system.
Okay.
So on page 3, you have number 4 that was crossed out, just the number 4 that was crossed out, and it says a new section 2010 should be added. And then on page 4, there's a section 7 called section 2010. So I just don't understand the numbering there.
Okay, I can explain that, I think. If you go back to page 1, under the heading Proposed Amendments, the letter 1 with a closed parenthesis around it is simply, it probably should have been set up as a bullet point. Those, for all intents and purposes, are bullet points. You see what I mean? So 1 with the closed paren around it is basically a bullet point. Same for number 2 below it. If you flip over to the next page,
3 and 4
yeah,
and 5.
yeah. So
But still,
it's-
you're talking about a new section 2010 should be added.
No,
Are you saying a new section should be added to section 2010?
no.
So you see, so on page 3 at the bottom and page 4, you're using 2010 twice. That's what I
Okay.
think. That's what.
I see that. Yes.
Yeah,
My apologies.
Okay.
So
So
that's Eric's job, though.
no, and it's.
I like watching
Listen,
lawyers go
it's-
back and forth.
It's good that he found it.
He finds
Okay.
everything.
so
I mean, would that become, so 7 would become 2013? I don't,
We have to go over this and
Yeah.
fashion it into a local law. So it's
Right.
gotta
Yeah.
be-
No, no,
It's got to be specific as to what we're amending, what we're adding.
understood. All right,
Which we can
so,
work on.
so on page 3, that should be the new 20-10. And then,
the one that had the 4, but you took it out. You redlined it, right?
yeah,
Okay,
and then bullet point 7, which is on page 4.
right.
Well, that's interesting. We'll have to figure out how to do the
Okay.
numbering correctly. The point is well taken.
Thank you.
Did you have anything else?
Mark,
One thing.
I've got a bunch of what look like, just mistaken errors. You know,
Typos.
run on.
Well, I think they're going to fix that because of the red
If you
line.
want to take that and use
Yeah.
it.
Sure. Do you trust me with it? Thank you.
Go ahead.
I only had one thing to say, which is I think we've had this conversation about, or a very quick conversation about subpoena powers, and personally, I'm not for the Board of Ethics coming out of the box with subpoena powers. I think we're in a process where just shoring up what the abilities are of a Board of Ethics. I guess I'm always concerned about too much power in various ways. And I don't think it's a great idea to have the Board of Ethics come to the town board to ask for subpoena power in particular scenarios, because I think it can get messy and real fast. And I don't know what situation. I mean, granted, we haven't had the ability for the public to come to the Board of Ethics. That's what part of this is going to be. But in general, I don't believe there's been a whole lot of Board of Ethics complaints in the past year. I'd be surprised if there's going to be some floodgate coming. And so I don't know that I see an immediate need for kind of broadening this power base so quickly. It's just a personal.
Yeah, I don't think it's really about even this board. It's about future boards. It's about setting up a program. It's about that everybody works on an elected cycle, on the town board, and the clerk is elected and what have you. So, I have a tendency, if it is legal, I have a tendency to agree with Councilman Blaha that if you can do it on a case by case, I would not want to have carte blanche, but I wanted to know that if we need someone that they understand, then you probably would never have to use the subpoena if they know that they could come back and get it. That's all I'm saying. You want the right answers so that you can find out the right information, because that's very important. And I think that if people can give you that, but they're hesitant for whatever reason, could be that they're afraid. Could be that they're.
Well, we can always put in a situation too where if somebody is being pulled into an investigation who's not actually, and you're now subpoenaing them, now we're getting into people bringing lawyers to the battle, and now absolutely
Okay.
you're bringing a lawyer, and so now that becomes, now you've made what's an investigation or into a potentially huge issue. And so I'm just not sure that that's exactly the direction we want to go.
Just so I'm clear, I think the question that has to be researched is whether or not we can set up the code in such a way that the town board by resolution can grant on a case-by-case basis to the ethics board subpoena power. That's
And we hope never to use it.
No, of course, but
Yeah.
it still is a question of of the legality of it by resolution, and that has to be researched.
I mean, it would be I would imagine that would be a case that was so significant and so big, there would be lawyers all over the place anyway. So,
And maybe, all this
I
stuff.
mean, that to me, that would be enormous.
The fact that there's even a question about subpoena power, I would hope that there would be no need ever for an
Yeah.
ethics complaint at all.
Right.
So this is the whole process is what if? So what if it's a really severe allegation and the only way to get the only information available is by calling somebody who otherwise would refuse to come in? And that rare instance, maybe you can tailor a language that says only, and it should be understood that this would be only in the rarest of instances. I don't know, you
Yeah.
could tailor it to say that it's not to be issued willy-nilly. I don't know. But the fact that to me, it's either black or white. You don't have subpoena power or you do have subpoena power. It seems to me those are two extremes. I'm just trying to figure out some sort of a compromise where maybe one case would warrant it, but 99 other cases wouldn't warrant it. So what do? Do you strip the Board of Ethics of the ability at all, or do you give them, once in a blue moon, they have the right, and the board recognizes it and says, oh, this is one of those rare cases where it ought to be issued?
But the point is, if you're setting up an independent Board of Ethics, and you want to give that board the ability to determine whether or not a matter is of such significance as to require a subpoena, then why not just give them the subpoena power and let them make that decision, as opposed to having that board then come to your board to ask for the subpoena power?
Because we're not ready for that yet. And as a compromise, instead of just saying, okay, here's your subpoena power, as a baby step along the way, maybe after this. I'm not willing to dig on my heels on any of this. I think this is
if I
all
may.
introductory, and I'm glad to have something in place. But whatever
I
works
just feel that interferes with the independence of the Board of Ethics, which is what you're trying to create. But that's just my opinion.
I think that what we have to sort of look at the broad goal here, and one of them, as Wayne indicated, is to create an independent Board of Ethics. And going to the board on a case-by-case basis, the town board on a case-by-case basis, to ask for subpoena power, on some level makes the town board part of the investigatory process, and I don't think that you want that. If I may, what I think would make sense, and honestly, I'd have to research whether the town board, maybe Wayne knows, but I don't know off the top of my head whether the town board has the authority to even delegate subpoena power to a body like the Board of Ethics. So I'd have to look into it, frankly.
I would like you also to look into how other communities are doing it. I mean, we know you've looked into different municipalities.
we
So
have.
how are different municipalities handling it? But we need to move on this in an expeditious way, because we need to have public hearings. We need to do all the stuff we want to do to make this. Our goal is to start this on January 1st. So we have a quarter now to do this. But so if you can come back in 2 weeks again, and
Okay. Fine. I just, if I can just weigh in on this, my
Yes.
feeling is that if there's a contemplation of giving some type of subpoena power to this board, assuming that the town board has the power to do it, I would say give the Board of Ethics independent subpoena power. If they abuse it, the people who are the subject of the subpoenas believe me, will have their remedies. And,
But by that
sort of
time, they
takes
will
care of
have
that.
already gone through it. I mean, I don't know that that's. I would be concerned about somebody having suffered from. I mean, we were talking about who knows, but in a hypothetical situation, we have a board who's gotten a little bit away from themselves and start utilizing subpoena power. They pull somebody in, and then to say that after that is done, then that person who's been aggrieved then has a remedy, that's setting up a situation that could create negativity, and then you're saying, okay, well, now that they can go back and get remedy.
No,
I just,
that's not what I mean. If a subpoena is served, let's say somebody's out in the community, they're a witness and they don't want to cooperate, and the board decides that in order to conduct an appropriate investigation, they have to issue a subpoena to compel that person to come testify. If that potential witness who is under subpoena objects to the subpoena, the remedy for that person is to, I guess they'd have to hire a lawyer, but they could actually go to a court to commence a proceeding to prohibit the Board of Ethics from exercising that subpoena.
so
power.
now you have a person who otherwise is just a normal person walking around minding their business who might have seen something, and now they have to get a lawyer and go to court.
We have to look into the whole process anyway, because at the end of the day, the Board of Ethics may or may not be able to be given subpoena power, but one thing they do not have is the power to hold a person in contempt for failure to obey a subpoena. So that would still have to be brought to a court, and we have to show how it's enforceable.
I think the whole point of this is to create a situation where, 80% of all people do the right thing all the time. 10% of the people go overboard to do the right thing, and another 10% always don't do the right thing, right? But it's not to lose any of that 80% to do stupid stuff, and that that is inappropriate against your elected position or your appointed position, for that matter. So I don't know what the answer to that is, and I don't want that to hold up this whole thing, but I think it's important that people understand that we take this ethics board extremely seriously. We take the whole ethics code extremely seriously, and we would hope that everyone would come forward that had an issue or a problem with anyone that's a real issue or a problem, because you'll get stuff in just by bringing up ethics committees and code. You'll get ethics complaints now from people that that's why it's important to keep it quiet for a while. But I think we need to look at that. We need to find out the different options. But I think it's also better. I think the community would appreciate more if you had the ability to find out what the right answer is, and so that's where my thinking on it. And I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to be a lawyer, and. But it's go ahead.
No,
Your turn.
I just wanted to say to Mr. Reisman and Mr. Khan, you guys sitting here like being grilled almost, and you're doing this for free. And I think that's a little bit harsh on the way we're doing it. We're talking about this ethics, about the subpoena power. This is why, I don't know if you remember, when we first started, I said, make sure you get somebody on the board that is not an attorney.
Right.
And this is the reason. Somebody with just plain common sense, not lawyer sense. And it makes a difference, because you thinking legally and they're thinking personally. And it makes a difference how people feel.
I certainly understand that. But again, the fact that you provide a body such as a Board of Ethics with certain powers doesn't mean that they're obligated to exercise them. It simply means that they can if they need them. And through the appointment process, you hope, like you do when you appoint anybody to any position, that the people who are appointed are going to appropriately use the power. That's all.
Right.
I agree.
So next steps.
So my next steps are to look at to do the somewhat ministerial renumbering of the statute, to look at Mr. Harder's, I see all his markups. I'll incorporate those into this, and to resubmit them. I'll also do some checking around to see how other municipalities are handling the subpoena power issue.
Okay.
And do some research about what power, if any, the town board has to delegate subpoena power to a body like the Board of Ethics.
Can I propose that in order to pass legislation that I think we're about 98% there, except for the subpoena power issue, why don't we vote to approve this with those anticipated modifications, put the legislation on the books, and then address subpoena power, because that's a process. That's not going to be answered within 2 weeks, if you ask me. And then the discussion by the board as to what measures to take. I'd like to sort of maybe move this along, get something on the books, and then if we need to amend it to put a fine point on the subpoena power issue, then we pick it up another day.
Hey, Eric, did you want to give the notes for him to?
Yeah, I mean, if I have them,
but
but I'm just,
I might also have
I'm in
some.
favor
I might also
of taking this document, making the ministerial changes that we talked about tonight.
I have a
and moving it forward, putting it on the legislative docket.
I just have a procedural question. Once this proposed legislation is passed, in whatever form it takes, then it goes out to a public hearing.
Right.
And,
Well, first of all, it has to be posted.
right.
Right.
And then the public will make comments on that.
Right.
If the members of the town board feel that some of the comments are legitimate, is it conceivable that there could be amendments made to the proposed legislation?
The process actually is that the board first calls for a public hearing on the changes before they adopt them.
Okay.
So that's the time when the public gets to chime in on it before the board actually adopts the new local law, which makes the amendments to the law.
Okay. So then it's possible that once this is posted for public comment, it won't necessarily be adopted by the board in the form in which it was originally posted?
It would be unusual for it to change dramatically.
No, I understand.
Especially this.
But let's say, for example, the subpoena power issue.
Oh,
I know it's not going in right now.
Right.
But let's say the board chose to put it into the proposed legislation. The public outcry was so large that
right.
in the end, it may not be in there.
Well, that's part of the reason why you might want to wait, because, you want to have the right information to give to the public as to what other people do, what other communities do, why are we looking for this good, solid, as Councilman Member Wilshire said, common sense language, so that people understand what you're talking about. So next steps then, if we do this, is you come back in 2 weeks, then we call for a public hearing. Okay, because then you have the month, after the law. So if you come back in 2 weeks with this written up, any information that you have on the subpoena power would be appreciated at that time. But if that can also wait. So we do that. We call for a public hearing by the end of the month, right? And then in November we have a public hearing on it, and we pass it. And then the month of December is the whatever. What do you call that? Gestapo? No, what do you call that one? No. What do you call it when you have a month after you do a law? What? Gestapo prayer. Yeah, it was damn close.
Okay. Take off the G, you're good. Gestapo.
So, I'm getting there. Yeah, I'm getting that lingo. So, let's do it that way and see where we stand, because we really, especially if in the month of December, we want to put a call out for and interview people to be on the board so that we can start it up in January and hopefully never use it. Okay?
Okay.
That should be a good action plan, right? Thank you. Thank you for all the work
Thank you.
that you have done on this, and
Thank
it's
you.
outstanding. So we're really pleased with it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Recreation IMA discussion, and I just want to make a little statement. So October will be an interesting month for the town of Ossining. We are in the midst of budgeting for the next year. The supervisor's budget will be released October 30th, the day before Halloween, 2014. At that time, the town board will review the proposed budget. We will hold public meetings with the department heads, and then we will hold, of course, the public hearing, and then on or before December 20th, we hope it to be done by December 9th meeting, we will vote on the final budget for 2015. This year, we are making some structural changes to the budget. As many of you are aware, we manage several budgets in the town, from the town general fund, which serves the entire town of Ossining, to the unincorporated and highway funds, to multiple special districts. The unincorporated area budget, or the 20 fund, is where we fund the police services, and we are in contract negotiations with the Village of Ossining. We also have been working on the highway fund budget with the superintendent of highways and the building inspector on the building for the building department. One of the IMAs that we have with the Village of Ossining is for recreational services for the unincorporated area. This IMA has been in town general budget for many, many years. So in fact, people who live in the village of Ossining and the village of Briarcliff Manor are paying twice for their recreational services. Over the past few years, we have moved revenues, such as cable franchise fees, from the town general into the unincorporated area budget. And now, in the interest of fairness, we will be moving the recreation services IMA into the unincorporated area budget. During our discussions with the village, we have stressed the need for the residents of the unincorporated area to pay the same fees for the recreation budget, for the recreation department services as the village of Ossining. The village has we're almost finished. I'm looking for a shake of the head from the audience. The village has agreed to have the residents of the unincorporated area get their rec key card for $5 and to pay the same fees for all services, including the use of the pool, as the village residents do. The only exception would be that of lap swimming. Lap swimmers will continue to pay a higher rate than the village residents and others outside the area, including Briarcliff Manor residents, will pay a different rate entirely. Please note, if you have a Briarcliff Manor address but live in the unincorporated area, you will benefit from this. So there's quite a few people that sometimes think that they live in Briarcliff, they live off North State Road, they live in District 20 usually, mostly. And if you are in the unincorporated area, you will benefit from this. We would like to encourage each of you to visit the Joseph G. Caputo Community Center, especially the Aquatic Center, and sign up for their e-blasts, which include programming for each season. There are a variety of classes offered, and they are looking to add in new computer classes, and we're not talking about turning a computer on, but sophisticated computer classes this winter that may be of interest to you. While we'll be moving the cost of the IMA to the unincorporated area for recreational services, there are some activities that belong in the town general budget, including recreational program for physically challenged youth and adults, the cost of the fireworks for the 4th of July celebrations, the cost of the bands for the concert series, men and women's softball league that's used by all residents of the town of Ossining. The administration cost for managing park rentals and boat ramps at Lewis Angle Park will be paid from the town general budget, as will any cost associated with the senior nutrition program that services everyone in the town of Ossining. We have people that use the senior nutrition from both villages and the unincorporated area. We have discussed these items with the village of Ossining, and we will be paying for certain services directly with vendors in order to streamline many of these processes. Our goal is to have each budget and each special district reflect the true cost of providing the service to the residents that use that service. We will continue to scrutinize the budget and work with our partners to ensure that all the residents of the town of Ossining are taxed fairly and receive the services for which they are entitled. There is a major difference between cutting budget items randomly and reducing the budget after careful consideration and analysis. These are your tax dollars, and this board and administration takes their responsibility very seriously. We are committed to making sure that each and every member of this community only pays for the services they receive, and we strive to ensure that our residents are free of double taxation as much as possible. We also do not believe in pushing expenditures out of the tax levy into fee-based services and or making activities prohibitively expensive. We all deserve to be able to enjoy the fantastic services that our communities offer, and at a price that reflects the actual cost of that service. So we just wanted to tell everyone that, because when they see the budget, they'll see that there is some changes in it that way. Any questions right now? Okay. Very happy with it. So, okay. So the next item on our agenda is the Lakeville Lift Station Capital Project Update. And Andy Teese, I want you to know that if you come down, I'm just going to take a little side note for here. If you're on 9A going north or south, soon we will have, and you're trying to turn onto 134, soon we will have left-hand red arrows, which will, we hope, stop a lot of these horrific accidents that happen out there. But if you turn into Ossining, either coming south coming south, so you turn right onto 134, which we want to remind everyone that it is no longer, you cannot turn right on Red there any longer, or you turn left from coming northbound, you will notice that when you pull into, well, forget about the trucks that are still all over the place over there because they're doing that lighting change. But you used to come and you would drive right into a big fence, and it would be, it was a sewer lift station, and it was pretty horrible looking. So, Andy, that's my lead in to you. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you
God
for
bless
having me
you.
here
Thank
tonight. Just want to start with the scope of the work. Basically, this was an old sewer lift station at the corner there of Feeney Road and Croton Dam Road, 134. The old Zappy project, gravity fed into this sewer lift station, and if you drove past it, you would see that it was a chain link fence, old diesel generator, pumps, and it was there was some tankage on the ground that was like above ground about a foot. The town highway department brought it to our attention, and the supervisor brought it to my attention as soon as we came on board about this was a serious issue as far as odors, as far as cleaning of the tankage, and essentially what happened was it was a sewer lift pump station that should have been taken out of service a while ago. And it was an area where the sewage would go into this area, build up, and would cause backups. So it was an immediate issue that needed to be taken care of. We hired Hudson Engineering, the town hired, not me, the town hired Hudson Engineering to work with us on this project. And essentially what they did was they put manholes on the street and on the corner of the easements of the property. And we gravity fed this whole pump station, and they were responsible for taking the pump station out of service, pumps out of service, and bypassing the whole station. We got word from the health department yesterday that it was all approved, and they signed off on everything.
Which is a major thing because they test and they test and they test and they test. Right?
A lot of municipalities will make changes like this in their system, and they won't inform who they're supposed to inform. And then you've got a serious liability issue down the road, and when there's a backup, they'll say, we never knew this change happened, and then the DEC gets involved and everybody gets involved. This was all done the way it should be. So the station was put online about 3 weeks ago. Actually, not the station. The station was taken out of service. So the new infrastructure was put online about 3 weeks ago. In the process of the scope of everything being dismantled and bypassing, I will have to give credit to the town highway department and Michael G. They helped with coordination. They removed the pumps. They removed the diesel generators so that could be scrapped, and the town got credit for that bulk material, bulk metal. So it's it was a very successful project. And it was smoother than I expected. There was one little snag where the water line was in the way, and we had to make a change and divert and put an extra manhole in, but it wasn't worth taking the chance of excavating by that water main. In fact, everybody knew about the water main break that happened 3 weeks before that, so...
Which had nothing to do with this, but we certainly didn't want another water main break.
Exactly, and it was, and that
those are major water mains too.
They're 12-inch water mains that are cast iron, so it would have been a big deal. But
Everything is now on gravity?
Yes, this whole entire infrastructure of this area is on gravity, and you're saving on the cleaning of the tankage, you're saving on the liability of backups. And I think it really changes the aesthetics of driving into the town there. Right. You know, you don't see that blight. So it's one thing that has to happen in the next week. We spoke to the contractor. They put pavement, temporary paving over those trenches. They've settled with the rain. So within the next week, they're going to put the final
the asphalt,
trenching. Yes, asphalt.
Companies are still open, right? Yeah.
Exactly. So it came out well.
I have to say that the people that own that property too got a yard, got a significant yard.
Yes.
There's a lot of easements still there because there's manhole covers, but yeah.
You handed out a color photograph
Yeah,
from
basically-
an aerial. So what is that?
Basically, it's the area that the work actually happened. Now, to the underneath the bottom left, you'll see some pine trees that are there. They actually covered that area. We couldn't get a view of it, but underneath those pine trees, that's where all the infrastructure was. So I just wanted to give you an idea of where all the work took place. The bottom left-hand side of the triangle towards Feeney Road, a manhole was installed there. A manhole was installed on the corner of the property under the A of area, on the small A. And we tied into the existing manhole on the other side of the S on the other side of the street. So
What is
it was a lot of work.
What does a manhole do?
Okay, basically, you can't have fittings in a sewer system. You have to have the ability, if you have to change direction, you can't just do it like plumbing in a house where you could just run a pipe to a 45 or a 22. You need to run it to a manhole, and in the manhole, there needs to be a trench, and it actually is carved out of concrete where the pipe goes into the manhole, the pipe leaves the manhole, and you could see how the water gets diverted so it doesn't impede the flow. So it's a way to change direction. It's a way to get to the pipes so you can clean the pipes. And it's very important that the elevations are all correct. It was especially in a gravity system. It worked out really well.
This really doesn't.
I know, you don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying here, but so are you saying that underneath the manhole there's actually no pipe? The pipe comes in, and then there's some sort of like a well area, and then a pipe leads out.
Correct.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, so if you lift the manhole cover, you're going to see a pipe in, a pipe out. Same with storm systems. This is sanitary sewer, but a water storm system has the same exact principle, and it's so that you can take care of the infrastructure and get to it. It's the right way to do it.
I want to thank everybody that put up with us, blocking the road, because it was like a couple of weeks. First we had the water main break on Kitchewan, right?
Correct.
And that closed that road out, and we had the state come in and rebuild that road because then it was done once, and it was done the way they wanted it to be done. So that took a little bit of time, and then we turned around and we closed off Croton Dam Road for a couple of weeks, only during the day, because they would amazingly
before school.
Amazingly. There would be these gigantic piles of dirt on the road, and then at the end of the day, they would be gone, and they would open the road up again, and then the next day there'd be these gigantic piles of dirt. So it's done, but it's done now. It's a major, major project. That's one of the things that we wanted to get done. It was on the top priority of our list. It was up there with the Cedar Lane drainage, which is now a big check mark on our list as a done project. This is another one that was done. And we're very, very proud of the work, and we want to thank Andy and our whole team, Michael G. O'Connor in the Highway Department, and Paul Frioli and Andy Teese, and great job coordinating. And we have this group that meets, and we're called Engineering and So Much More, and it is so much more. So it's very good that we get this done, so I'm very, very happy. And maybe if you could scan this in, maybe we can put it on the webpage so people can see where the... you notice it if you're looking for it, because I look for it, but I look for this long, now you see this soon-to-be grassy area, maybe not before the winter, but...
No, it's
Yeah.
It's a big change.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like to a normal person who is not into infrastructure, you really can't tell what was done, but considering the water lines, the gas lines, the traffic control, the infrastructure, it was a pretty big deal.
This is the same intersection, again, we're at the infamous 134, and because Croton Dam Road is 134, 134, where they all merged together. They diverted it off to Dale and Kitchewan, but this whole intersection, we have serious drainage problems on the other side of the road. And I remember when I first got here, there was these there was all these conduits at the end of the road because the state was going to come in and they hadn't checked, but there's tons and tons of gas lines under here, water lines under here, so it has to be done. Everything that's done in this intersection has to be very carefully done. So very, very
And
happy
it's-
with this.
It's a step in the right direction, and if you approve so, I would like to meet with All Makes Pumps and find out of any other stations that are close that have this same type of situation.
Yeah, definitely. Because we need to have as few of these pump lift
Yes.
stations as we can, because they're the one. That's when. Yeah.
The fewer the better. Like
The
the
fewer the
village is
better,
pretty
and-
lucky. The village only has one, and it's
Yeah.
because of the hills.
Yeah.
And since the town has moved out to a flatter area, it was
Right.
it was installed. And if it was put in, 20, 30 years ago, and it was because engineers overestimated it and they didn't want to really do the research of like looking at the elevations, we're going to find that out. So we're going to look at
Good.
the pump curves with the pump company that takes care of your maintenance and see what really has high pressure. And if there's pumps that have low pressure and it's kind of a waste, then we'll look at it close.
Yeah, you have to understand too that to repair a pump is close to $10,000, and to buy a new pump is close to about $25,000. So this is not small expenditures that you have when. It's such an interesting conversation to
The
have.
next thing is when something do go wrong and Mike wind up calling Cook.
Yes.
Lord have mercy. You could buy a couple of trucks.
Yeah, it adds up quick.
It does.
Very quick.
It does.
We've had some pretty bad spills
You're welcome.
in the last 10 years.
Yeah, anything to prevent the spills.
So, so Paul just came in, so thank you, Paul,
Does Paul have anything to say?
Yeah, do you have anything to add to this, or?
Whenever you walk in the room, they'll
Yeah,
say, "Hi,
yeah.
congratulations."
Yeah, just happened to be driving by.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
Thanks.
and the project that the team is working on now is, especially Paul, is Old Albany Post Road dead end. So, that will be done and hopefully soon, and we'll move on from there. But we've accomplished a tremendous. We changed our engineering services and everything about second quarter 2013, and have never looked back and had. 2012, and never looked back and had nothing but success ever since. So thank you, and saved the taxpayers of this municipality a lot of money. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Wow. So we talked about a lot of variety of topics tonight. It is a very interesting time, as I said before. October is a very, very interesting time, and there's so much going on. Good night. Thank you very much. And so now I want to adjourn into executive session for legal advice.
But we won't return from that?
We will not be returning.
So is there
from that.
something going on Saturday morning that we want to alert the residents
Fall
to?
Family Fun Day.
Yeah, so
Thank
this
you,
was
sir.
postponed because of rain, so.
Right, and holidays, but yes, Fall Family Fun Day will be at the Market Square on Saturday. It's always fun. There's hay rides, there's face painting, there's pumpkin carving, pumpkin painting, not carving, and and lots of fun activities. So come on down to Market Square on Saturday. It is Columbus Day weekend. Our offices are closed on Monday. And so we have a 3-day weekend. So, but we will see you next Tuesday at the courthouse for a legislative meeting of the town board. And we're looking for moving forward and keeping you informed as to what's going on in the community. So anything else?
No,
Anything, Kim?
motion to adjourn into executive session from which we shall not return
Okay.
until next time.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So have a great week.